everybody, welcome back to Gagne Farms. I'm Candace, and I was just thinking about how the holidays are coming up soon. Sugar pie. I got thinking of all the wonderful recipes that have been passed down through the generations, and I was just thinking of my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law always loved sugar pie. And this recipe is her grandma's recipe, and she looked forward to making it every year. So I am going to make this recipe in honor of her. This is a really simple recipe, and I think it is that way because it was from back during the Depression era, and so I think this was actually a recipe that people just made because it was ingredients that they had at the time. Even so, it was still something that my mother-in-law loved making every year. The first thing we need to do, of course, is get our oven on. We're going to preheat that to 375. The original recipe that was written down did not have the recipe for the pie crust. So that was another adventure I took on my own, is making my first homemade pie crust. This was a really easy pie crust that I made. You just blended flour and sugar and butter and a little bit of ice water, and that's all it took, and it came out pretty darn good. We need 3/4 cup of flour. We also need 3/4 cup of sugar. What would sugar pie be without the sugar, right? You take the sugar and the flour and you just kind of mix it with a fork. You don't want to beat it. And all we're going to do with this is we're going to pour it into the pie crust. The next thing we need is milk. We're going to pour 2 cups of milk inside the pie crust. We're not going to mix it in with the flour and sugar. We're just going to fill the crust. Next, we're going to dot with butter, and that is the exact words that were in the recipe. And I'm going to put the recipe up here for you guys to see because it's definitely one of those old grandma recipes that they didn't really need a recipe. So the grandkids wrote it down so they could remember, but great grandma didn't actually use a recipe. But you guys got to take a look at it. It's funny. So I'm going to cut this stick of butter up. And we're going to just take our butter and dot with butter. And the last thing that we do is we just sprinkle with some cinnamon. Oh. Now that we've got our sugar pie put together, we're going to bake it in the oven at 375 for 1 hour. When you take it out, it'll look somewhat liquidy, but it'll thicken up as it cools. Our oven is preheated to 375, so we're going to put our pie in now. It's been 1 hour and it's time to take the sugar pie out of the oven. So it does look a little liquidy, like I said it would. We're gonna let it cool and see how it turns out. I let the pie sit in the refrigerator overnight and cool, and it has set up quite nicely now. There is sugar pie ready to cut into. Kind of neat, different than I thought it was gonna turn out. Very custardy inside. Honestly, you guys, I did not know how this was going to turn out, but this is actually really good. You can taste the cinnamon. It has like a custardy feel to it, and it's sweet. I will definitely keep this one on the holiday tradition list. Thank you for coming on over and watching me make one of our traditional family holiday recipes. Don't forget to leave a comment. Have you ever heard of sugar pie before? Has your family ever had sugar pie before? Did you try my recipe? What do you think of it? Thanks, guys. Until next time, sugar pie.